right, y'all. Y'all know what it is. Just another episode of the Just Ivan Jr. podcast. Welcome. If you're new to this, just wanted to say welcome. Uh, Thank you for listening, taking time out of your day because I know you got a million other things you can do. So just thank you for listening, whether you're watching on here, Facebook Live, or YouTube, or if you're listening on the regular podcast uh, channels. I just want to say thank you. And just a reminder, just make sure you like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe whether you're on Apple Music, Spotify, or if you're on Facebook. Make sure you like the page, all that other good jazz, so that way you'll get notifications when future episodes come out and things of that nature. So today, I actually got my good brother on here, my man Kirk. We go way back. We've done a lot of different things together, so I'm definitely thankful for this brother. This is my brother here, so y'all are definitely going to like him because I have him on here, and I like him. That's my brother, so y'all definitely gonna like him. But Kirk, just introduce yourself. And yeah, matter of fact, just introduce yourself, your background, think little bit, just introduce yourself a little bit about what you do, things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kirk Baltimore. I am currently work as a homeless social worker. I have a background in social work, psychology, um, and so I'm really into like more so with mental health advocacy, those types of things. Ivan and I met in went to high school together, and then did a lot of projects together in the church during my time as a youth pastor. So we go way back, and I think that answers everything. Unless you want me to go more further, I'm trying to keep it,
Oh no, that,
whatever
no,
you want.
no, that's perfect. So I just want to let my man Kirk give some background on who he is. Like we both said, like we go, way back. We've done things together. So this is gonna be a fun episode. And today I we're going to discuss the mental health and church, right? This is an important topic because as you know, or if you don't know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very it's a serious month to reflect back on, really mental health and how it really affects us, especially in the black community, like how mental health affects us. And I feel like more than lately versus how it used to be, like back when even me and him was growing up, but even further back, even more back, mental health wasn't really taken as serious. And we're doing better jobs now. Like there's more people stepping up and being on the
Yeah.
front lines and taking it more serious and things of that nature. But I feel like of course, there's still more work to be done. You can never be too perfect at it. And then, there's still people that don't take it seriously or still don't think it's, a real legit thing and things of that nature. So today we really wanted to talk about the church and mental health and talk about some of the issues that we grew up with. Because I mean, if you grew up, in the black community or in church and things of that nature, some of the stuff we're going to talk about, it's going to hit home. You're going to hear, you've heard it before, and we really want to talk about that and really challenge and break some of them stigmas that comes with this topic. And really, by the end of this, I hope you'll have more encouragement, not only to take mental health more seriously, but even in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like even analyze yourself more. Like if you struggle with these things, it's okay. You know what I mean? Or realize that God knows that we struggle with these things, and there's many different ways that we can get help with the mental health stuff that we deal with. And there's not one like only way that God doesn't say there's only one way to handle mental health. And there's multiple ways that you can be helped, and He supports that, and He wants us to do that. So without further ado, let's really get started. So, Kurt, as far as what is some of the things you've heard like in the past, as far as how people approach mental health, and especially like in the black community as well? Like, what are some things that you feel like has plagued us over time and over the years that really hasn't helped us as a community when we're dealing with mental health?
Yeah. I think it's a bit tough just because with the black community, I feel like a lot of it is you know, in our resilience.
Mm,
Black people, we have constantly been the disenfranchised minority that, you know, we shall overcome. We do overcome, and there is like this sense of resiliency that historically, we've kind of stayed true to.
Mhm.
But that's also caused us to kind of view things like mental health as like a weakness, view it as something that, if you succumb to, that you're crazy, or, like, like there's no turning back, no turning back for you.
Mhm.
And I think that we've gotten to a place, well, I guess like the generations before us got to a place where it was like, we can't really ask for help. If it's not keeping me in my bed to where I physically can't get up,
Mhm.
like I'm just gonna keep pressing on.
Right.
Um, and so, which kind of saddens me in a way, because we've had grandmothers and grandfathers, great grandfathers, grandmothers, who were probably experiencing, like, chronic depression, or maybe even had PTSD, or hearing things, seeing things, and felt as if like they could not really talk about it or address it.
Mhm.
They may have had uh, a lot of people depending on them, and felt that, like, hey, well, if I am doing this, this may this could affect the ways that I make money and things like
Right.
that. And then also, I think medication,
Mhm.
mental health. When people think about mental health, they think taking psychotropic medications, and that's a scary thought for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so, that goes hand in hand with the resilience talk, and that, oh, I don't need those pills, or I don't need that, and so therefore they don't even go to therapy, or they don't even really take mental health services seriously.
Now that's some really good points you brought up, Kurt. Especially when you think about black people in general. Like when we think about our history and think about us dealing with the transatlantic slave trade and dealing with after slavery, then dealing with Jim Crow and dealing with segregation and dealing, and we always pride ourselves on resilience and having perseverance and lamenting through all the stuff we've been through, as a people group. And even after that, with redlining, and we can go into like it's a lot that
Yeah.
and we still deal with it today. You know what I mean? And I feel like because of that, and on one token, it's like, oh, it's great that as a people we're able to, overcome these things and persevere through these things and things of that nature. But on the second hand, it does plague us, as you said, because like mental health, like it's a joke because look what my people went through. Like,
Yeah.
what is anxiety? What is depression? What is like eating disorders and things of that nature? Like, that's not really serious stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we look where we came from. We were beaten. We were in chains, and we
Yeah.
went through segregation. We went through all these different stuff. So why this why would this make a big deal? And I feel like sometimes we don't think because of we went through those things. Yes, we overcome. Yes, we've done certain things, but there's traumas that those things has brought us
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
gives us these things. Like there's a reason why your grandparents have certain triggers and traumas that they dealt with because of the things that they went through in the past, right? And that
Yeah.
stuff can trickle down through our people. And those are good points. Like that's a really good point to even think about. And then also with medication, like people like, because I know some people that have taken medications for like their anxiety and things of that nature and been on it for like years, and they feel like it's not really helping them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you're watching other people do that, so it's like, oh heck no, I don't even want to deal with mental health just because I don't want to be on medications because
Yeah.
it gets you to it doesn't you don't feel like yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like those are really really like two good points. So as we both grew up in the church, right? We grew up in the church. We're thankful for the church, but the church ain't perfect as we ain't. Duh, obviously, because people ain't perfect. No one's perfect in any job. But growing up in the church, what was it like for you in particular when you heard about like mental health stuff? Like, what experiences or some things that you've dealt with?
You know, so growing up, it wasn't really like addressed as mental health, and
Hmm.
it really wasn't addressed as like even a health issue. What would more likely that what would happen would be like if we were at church and somebody were to have like an episode. Uh, and it was difficult in that, I am more so I grew up more so Pentecostal and apostolic,
Mm-hmm.
non-denomination. They
Right.
believe very, very heavily in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues.
Right.
A lot of that was also masked by that. So
Mm-hmm.
like, you had certain, behaviors going on, and a lot of times it was masked in the religious component of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it wouldn't necessarily come in the form of mental health or mental illness. It would usually spark once something, I guess odd was shared, or if like like an odd idea, or something that appeared to be a bit strange, and then it was the immediate judgment. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this person, I believe the words that were used back in the, and during those times, like this person's touched, or this person, is crazy, or this person, stay away from this person.
Or they
It
have a
was,
demon.
yeah, I didn't get too much of that, but yeah, I've heard, friends tell me about, stuff like that. But yeah, like, I mean, it in the black church, just as like as a whole, like that was definitely a belief that if there's like this strange behavior, somebody must be demon possessed,
Mm-hmm.
and so like it really, all it highlighted was that like we really were not prepared, not like in church leadership or anything like that, but just like as people in general, we weren't really prepared to like really deal with that, because we weren't even prioritizing our own basic mental health
Right.
needs, you
Right.
know. During those times we were in church constantly. I mean, you know, uh, first and second, third services. We were in church for rehearsals and Bible studies, and we were going more faithfully back in those days. But, we were also really, really burnt out as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really heard my parents talk about burnout or talk about them being overextended at their jobs. So, like, they were, ignoring their own mental health concerns. So when someone showed up and their mental health concerns seemed to be, you know, out there, or, just drastically different, we didn't know really what to do with that,
Right.
you know?
That's a good point. Cause I also grew up in the Pentecostal
Uh-huh.
realm as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me being a youth pastor, at my church we're Assemblies of God, so of course we're in the Pentecostal realm. Even though like in my church we're not like, because you got Pentecostal, then you got Pentecostal. You know what I'm saying? You got,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like, so we're not like that. You know what I'm saying? But growing up, I have heard like, I mean, it is weird because the verbiage was different back then. Like you said, we didn't say
Yeah.
mental health. It was either that you either had something wrong with you, or
Yeah.
you were doing something wrong, and this is why this is happening to you, or
Yeah.
you're demon possessed. So that way we got to pray this out of you. You need to speak in tongues and pray this out of you, and things of that nature. And over the years, I'm still considered Pentecostal, but I have a seatbelt. I have a seatbelt on me.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Give a seatbelt on.
yeah, I'm Pentecostal with a seatbelt for sure. Because I've seen some. I'm not gonna get down that road, but uh, it's just, I mean, and what else have I heard as well? I mean, or we said like, I'm feeling sad, but I don't like. I just remember like hearing like you feel sad or feeling anxious, you don't know why. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
then like I've heard people like, oh, you're fine, or you'll be okay, or just
Yeah.
pray, or
Just pray. Yeah.
just pray it away, or you'll be okay. Just find something to be happy. You know what I mean? I remember
Yeah.
even in myself feeling these, like, before I knew what depression was, I was depressed. Like about things I was dealing with at school, or how I was being treated when I was younger, and dealing with certain things. And
Yeah.
my parents my parents were definitely like supportive in that. They didn't brush it away like, oh, yeah, thank God for that, because everyone don't have that same situation. But I remember even telling certain people about it. They're just like, oh, why? Why you sad? Why you like? Why you got this, that, and the third? Like, you be all right. Like you're okay. Like, it was just like a consensus of pushing things away. Like, if it
Yeah.
wasn't something like that's super drastic, like something that's really bad, like they can physically like see, like not something just mentally that they're not around for, then they'll just look at you, and also when it came to therapy, like it was always the consensus of like therapy's only for crazy people. Like
Yeah.
that's growing up, that's what I always heard. Like therapies for crazy people. Like, unless you got something insanely wrong with you. Like, you ever had like mental images like back then of like when you've seen therapy, you've seen people in, like white jackets. You know, what I mean,
Yeah.
and like what you call it, like I forgot what those jackets are called, like the straight jackets,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. Like that's what I always thought. Like when I
Yeah.
see people in therapy, like going to
Yeah.
see a therapist, right? And sometimes I think about like if we would approach it differently or learned about it differently, and like how much more of an impact it could have made, like from not even ourselves, from even like our peers, like especially like our age, and even our parents and things of that nature. Because you spoke on burnout, and if you have parents that serve, and back when you do these 3 to 4 services, you know what I'm saying, you get burnt out, and you're doing it every week, and then you got other meetings on during the week and things of that nature. Like it's serious burnout, but in the church, it's always viewed as this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
uh that stuff was very like very unhealthy, very like I don't want to say toxic, but it could have got toxic. You know what I mean? When we
It
don't
could
see
have.
that.
Yeah. I mean, but in many ways, like we were as a community, Black community, we're doing like the very best we could, because
Right.
like a lot of the issues that we see, even in the church, when it comes down to like accepting mental health or even mental illness, it's not necessarily that we are against it. It's just really like how we were conditioned
Mm-hmm,
based on our very real like socioeconomic like status and realities.
mm-hmm,
Like the majority of Black people, especially like when us like migrating into like the Pentecostal church, we were of a very similar socioeconomic background. Like we were minorities. We weren't making, you know, only a few of us were making decent money,
mm-hmm.
and so like it was kind of like this community that you had to kind of like stay connected with. So some things we really didn't have the privilege to really look at it in through the lens of health or through the lens of like, hey, something honestly might be wrong. Like we didn't have that privilege to sit back and to say, this is what's going on with me. We all of our, uh our whole like our agenda was just, hey, we need to make this money. Time is money. We can't afford to just, if I do not have a fever, if I can still walk, I really need to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do these things. And church was a way of like an outlet, to, yeah, believe, to have hope and to put your faith in, to get an inspiration and to, have a close connection with God. But a lot of it was also, in that community piece. Like we needed it, but like we were also coming from a very similar background. Nowadays, we start to see there are more people who look like us doing a lot better in life,
Right.
and we're starting to now learn more about different cultures and things like that. But like when you think about people who were like in like the upper middle class, higher classes back in those days when we were kids in the church,
Mm-hmm.
they were going to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
They
know
were.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
They were. Yeah.
yeah, like they had therapists and they didn't see therapy um in the same light that we did. It wasn't necessarily about uh being crazy. It was more so of like, I get to share what happened, and I get to kind of process how I'm feeling about things. And those are just things that
Mm-hmm.
the average Black person at that time, in the Pentecostal church, really just didn't understand. Not because of anything else outside of, it just wasn't our reality. Like
Right.
it really really wasn't a part of it. And so we still have like a lot of people in the church, older people in the church, who are still kind of stuck in that. And so when you bring up therapy, it's an insult. And
Yeah.
yeah, like Jesus is my therapist, and or all of that, like those are just honestly just defense mechanisms. They're
Of course.
excuses,
Of course.
because like you can have faith, and then also practice wellness.
Right.
And I just, it honestly, it just really boils down to how they internalize it and how they are kind of like receiving it. It just wasn't a message that was common.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It
And
just wasn't.
you brought up a good point too, because there were people in the church, like different families, like as you said, that were getting therapy, right? And but I kind of wish like they were a bit more open about it. Like, do you think they were more open about going to therapy because of the peers in the church thinking that they were crazy, or they would view to be viewed as crazy if they would have been more open about going to therapy? You think that that's
Uh,
why?
I see what you're saying. I think it was so heavily embedded in our community that
Mm,
even if a few people were okay with it and it was received well, it would be reinforced somewhere else that it was not.
yeah, yeah,
It would be like, you go to school and you say the same thing to like a few others, and it's like, oh, you go to a therapist, and then by the time you come back to church on Sunday,
you're getting
you don't
cooked.
want to talk about
You're getting cooked.
yeah, you just can't. Like it was too much. So like the church is one thing, but like a lot of the things, a lot of the ways that we felt in the church was also like reinforced in just our own community,
Mhm,
whether you were like faithfully going to church, or if you went some days, or if you didn't go at all. Like
right.
it was more so of like a community thing that I think that the church has kind of like developed ways
Mhm,
on like how to think about it and how to like kind of counteract
right.
like an argument about mental health.
Mhm.
But like I feel like it was like a community wide issue.
I agree. I agree. And if you really think about it too, like if you look at even the history of it, like why it's so bad, because like in the church, it was also viewed as like going to a therapist was like it was secular. Like you can't go, like
Yeah,
why would you go to a secular person to help you like this when you have your church here and you got your pastor here, and it's viewed as secular because in the 19th century, like at the beginning of the 19th century, where you had it was a political type thing pretty much, like where you
yeah,
had like liberals who were somehow like they were dipping into that, they were dipping into that, and then you had more conservative trying to say no, like trying to protect the church and the people, like nah, you know what I'm saying, like nah, we don't need no secular, and that's how I feel like that's where we get this like, especially here in America, like where we get this, but especially back then, like nah, we don't need no therapist and things of that nature, because even though like in the black
yeah,
community it's huge, but also in other communities and denominations it's bad, and I thought some of them might be even worse than even what we deal with when we even go down the fundamentalist lane. You know what I'm saying? They don't look at anything outside the church. You can't do nothing outside
yeah.
the
That's
church.
true.
You know what I mean? So it's really bad. So like even historically, like we're conditioned to be this way. Unfortunately, like this is how this is how we were. You know what I mean? And speaking of that, um, so what would you say to somebody that's like, okay, um, you don't need to go to a therapist. It's secular. Like I should just go to my pastor. My pastor should be able to do this. Like, what do you say if someone says that to you? Like, what's your what's your thought or opinion of someone saying, I don't need no therapist. I'll just go to my pastor. Like they're secular. They're outside the church, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what's your thought on that?
you know, I I think a lot of people honestly feel that way,
Hmm.
and I think that it really goes to show, and I think I've spoke about this um on a podcast. Yeah, I spoke about this on one of my podcasts actually. That like we were kind of debating if leaders in the church and pastors included should you know like have like an actual stance on like referrals for mental health services,
Hmm.
because a lot of people will not necessarily go out and seek a mental health therapist off the
Right.
bat,
Right.
and so they may appreciate some feedback from their pastor and saying, hey pastor, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that, can you pray for me? And the pastor can pray, but he
Hmm.
can also say, you know what, this may actually be a good idea for you, because some messages they may not necessarily receive from me or receive from you,
Right.
but they may say, hey, I trust my pastor on this, and if he's saying it's okay, like it could be it could be just be like a just like a resource of just support for them.
Hmm.
um my my just initial thought on that, like I don't need a therapist, I just need to go to my pastor, I don't really see a reason why they can't do both of those things.
Right.
You know, I feel that in any situation, you know, your support system will want you to be well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I feel like there are times that, um, you know, we kind of know that we probably should do something, and then we really don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm reminded of, uh, you know, when Jesus was healing the man at the who was at the pool of Bethesda,
Right.
and you know, he said, do you want to be well? You know, you know, you're here, and I think that he couldn't get to the uh to the water in enough time before the others, but he was there, I want to say, for like over 30 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he just couldn't get there, and Jesus was healing. Do you want to be well? You know, do you want this? And I feel like there are times that we kind of know when we probably have an issue and we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's okay to like listen to yourself.
Right.
And I also think that it's great if you feel connected enough that you would want to include your pastor. That's perfectly fine, you know. And in many, like when you talk about like treatment planning in a mental health setting,
Mm-hmm.
they invite anybody that you want to be a part of your treatment plan.
Right. Right.
You know, so you can invite your pastor, you can invite your parents, you can invite friends, you know, anyone who you feel will be just a good fit to hold you accountable. You know, you're open, you know, they're open to that.
Right.
So like it really doesn't, once you break that barrier of like this is a safe space, you begin to see that like it's not so bad. Like you know, this is just to help you to feel well,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's a that's a good answer, Kurt. That's a really good answer. And I'm gonna be a little blunt here when it comes to pastors. And one thing I think when it comes to pastors is we need to, because you have to look at what a goal. What's the job of a pastor? Like, let's get down to the bit. What is the actual job of the pastor? The job of the pastor is to shepherd the flock spiritually. Okay, to spiritually guide your flock, give
Yeah.
them correct doctrine. Make sure they're on their p's and q's. Make sure they're guide them spiritually to Jesus, to learn the Bible, to learn the Word, to build disciples, so they can go out and do the same exact thing. That's the goal of a pastor. Now, unfortunately, sometimes we can get caught in, and granted, there are pastoral counseling type things when it comes to like relationships and things of that nature, which nothing's wrong with that. But a lot of times, as a pastor, we need to, because we know when we're outside of our bound, like, well, for the
Yeah.
most part, for the most
Yeah.
part, I'm not gonna say, because there's some pastors that are pastors that think they know everything and think that but
Yeah, I agree with
as pastors, we know when we're not in our scope of practice,
you. Yeah.
meaning when we're stepping out of our boundary. So a lot of the time we need to check our ego at the door and be like, look, when it comes to spiritual matters and things of that nature, like, you can confide in me when it comes to things. I can hold you accountable to certain things, right? And pray for you and things of that nature, and tell you how Jesus will approach a situation, and things of that nature. But when it comes to mental health, chemical imbalances in your mind, and certain traumas that you went through, some that stuff is out of my scope. So I don't mind you going. I don't mind you going to a therapist for someone that you need help with, because at the end of the day, a pastor, we're not like we don't do, we're not a psychiatrist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're not uh we're not therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, it's our job as far as like taking care of the flock is also like being in there with them, and spending life with them and doing things with them, and if they're in trouble or care, things of that nature, we're there for them. Like, we're there on the front lines. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we do that, but at the end of the day, like, we're not therapists. You know what I mean? That's not what we do. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the Bible, it doesn't say we're people's therapists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He didn't say there was apostles, uh, evangelists, elders, and he didn't say therapists right after it. No, that's not. No, it's not. Paul didn't say therapist right after that. Like, no, it's not how it goes. It's not in our scope. And I feel like sometimes, even from the pastoral role, um, sometimes it could be an ego thing where we feel like we are the ones that can help them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are the ones that can give them the answer. Like they don't, and I'm not saying every pastor like tries to say don't go to a therapist. I know some may have said that in the past probably, but I know like not pastors not saying don't go, you don't need no therapist, come to me and the church and things of that nature. But I feel like as our job too, as shepherding the flock, is making sure that we're leading them in the right direction as well.
Yeah.
Jesus, and also to other people that can help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like when you think about community and things of that nature, there's different people who do different things in the church. Like you have doctors who go to your church, you have nurses, you have people that work on cars, you got people that uh um do plumbing and things of that nature. And there's people in the church that can help you. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not a mechanic. Like, yes, you having car problems and you're dealing with them having problems with the money and stuff like that. I can help you with certain things, but at the end of the day, I can't fix your car. There's someone
Yeah.
at the church that can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I just think from the pastoral standpoint, like we have to make sure too that we are when we're shepherding the flock or shepherding whoever you're shepherding, whoever your ministry is geared to, you're really shepherding them is making sure you're leading to the right thing, which is to Jesus and to whoever else can also help as well. So,
Yeah.
like, I feel like, in the pastoral world, we need to make sure that we're like whatever ego, whatever thing we're missing, we need to check that at the door or put ourselves aside and make sure we're doing everything we can to help whoever we're helping fully. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think that's a key thing for pastors as well, and even for people like people, it's okay to go to both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's okay to go to both. You don't have to go to one. There's no choice. This is not like a. There's no choice here. This is not a salvation issue. Like
Yeah.
salvation is not on the table here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a this or that. You know what I mean? You could. We should be comfortable going to Jesus, sure, and going to Him first, and things of that nature. He gives us peace. The Bible talks about that. He gives us peace like nobody else. He gives us strength like nobody else, and things of that nature. But He also has other people that have different gifts and abilities that can help us as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with doing both, and I do think we have to make sure we are conditioned.
Yeah.
Still, even to this day, there's still leaks, of the condition that we've been a part of.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely. I do think that it's very important that you know. I think that you spoke on some things that kind of go like throughout like a different that go through like go across um a lot of different topics. And one is, are you at a church that you feel like that they want you to be well?
right.
Because if you're not, then you really can't expect your pastor
Hmm.
to really say anything that's going to really prioritize your well-being. And I think that oftentimes, um I think that you and I probably have heard about a lot of ministries where it's like, no, they're not. That's not. They're not really prioritizing the people, or
Right.
And I think that it kind of the church in itself gets a bad rap, just because like they, a lot of when you talk about like secular culture, they kind of view the church as a joke, and
Hmm.
that like we're just out here trying to get people's money,
Right.
and we go this is gonna pray, you pray this away and pray that away and all
Right.
that, get people excited, and then nothing happens, essentially, is the message. But I think that it is important for churches to at least be able to say, hey, you know what, this sounds like something that perhaps you may want to check out and see if this service would be good for you.
Hmm.
Like, it is okay to say, I can pray for you, and I can also refer you somewhere.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like it really enhances the experience. Like, you're dealing with them spiritually, but you're
Hmm.
also dealing with them very physically.
Hmm.
You know, if we were so spiritual, then I would have to question why we're on earth, and why we can feel the ways that we feel and kind of go through some of the experiences that we do.
Right.
Um, and I also think it's a bit insulting when somebody is coming and they have gone through like abuse, sexual abuse, or just childhood abuse, or maybe they've gotten out of a horrible domestic violence situation and they're seeking shelter somewhere, and the pastor says, I'm just going to pray for you. It's insulting, and
Right.
it's kind of belittling what's going on or belittling, their past traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And, those things really affect, someone's mental health.
Yes.
Um, there was a there was a study that was done, I believe. Don't get me lying off the top of my head, but there was a study done. There was a study done a few years ago where they were looking at trauma experiences, growing up, and how that contributes to one's mental health as they get into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it was kind of challenging this, like, oh, is mental health a chemical imbalance, or is it kind of a product of your environment, and that it could actually be all of those things?
Right.
Because anxiety, I mean, like, a lot of us have it, living in a society where everything's expensive. Rent is through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Like those things, and you're thinking about how you're going to make ends meet. Like, all of a sudden you have anxiety.
Right.
you know um all it really takes is for, a close loved one or so to pass away. And if you are really stuck in your grieving and you're having a hard time, it's very easy to develop, depression.
Right.
Like, it's these things are easy, and so, like, I feel like it's more of a reality than I think we've kind of allowed it to be back in the past. So
Yeah.
whenever mental health would even come up in a conversation, it was in the context of, oh, somebody's crazy.
Yes.
Somebody's like, not, they need to go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the straight jacket, and, getting whisked away in the ambulance, and being in in a room with padded walls, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that these days, institutions like that don't even exist there.
Nope.
So, like, it's ever evolving, but, like, it's never really been the way that we've, like, kind of treated it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But man, bro, you hitting it on the head, bro. Like, man, like this is this topic. I feel like I know we talk like mental health is talked about a lot, like
Yeah.
and when as far as like secularly, you know what I'm saying? Church, like as church folks, as us, we don't really we mention it, talk about it, we say it's important,
Hmm.
but I feel like there's not enough conversations about it and how as the church we can do better at it. You know what I'm saying? Or like how we need to approach it more, or how we need to actually view it and take it more seriously. Because as things happen to us, there are reactions to it.
Yeah.
Like if you've been through trauma in your life, it's not you're going to deal with that. Like it's going to like you're going to deal with different things that happen to you because of the trauma that you went through.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
just you know like even if you're able to wake up in the morning and get through certain things and you're able to still persevere through it, you know what I'm saying? Which I believe that's God's helping us with that, even subconsciously when we're not realizing it. But at the end of the day, mentally, physically on your body, how you feel like it's leaving a mark on you, whether we know that or not.
Oh
And
yeah.
as we talk about at in the black community with us, you know what I'm saying? Like everything we went through as African Americans, you know what I mean? Like we're still deal with that stuff today. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not exactly how it was, but we still deal with certain things because of the traumas and the things that they went through, right?
Yeah.
And it's good because we acknowledge a lot, especially as a church, and I actually did a podcast episode last week about vulnerability and things of that nature. How
Hmm.
I feel like sometimes in the church we talk too much about what God has brought you through already, but we don't talk about enough things that we're currently dealing with. We don't,
True.
we don't talk about that enough. Like it's great, and I get it. It's great for the people to hear the testimony. Like, you know what? I've been homeless and I had all these things happen to me, and I was at my lowest, but then Jesus helped me. And but we don't talk about how he help you. We don't talk about how it happened. You know what I'm saying? How or what you're currently going through now. You know what I'm saying? Because as Jesus guarantees us, like things in life are going to happen to us,
Yeah.
whether it's in our control or out of our control, right? We're going to have trouble. Things are going to happen in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's important that we talk about the things that you're currently dealing with, the things that you're currently struggling with. And mental health is something that a lot of us deal with, struggle with, depression, anxiety, all these different things, which you can even trigger anger, which a lot of people have anger problems. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people deal with anger and have anger problems, right? So I feel like, and especially even with men, as us black men, because when we share mental health or we share our feelings and things of that nature, what's the common thing? That we're weak. It's a sign of weakness. And I get it because in certain neighborhoods and environments, guys have to shelter that because it is a sign of weakness and things of that nature. I get, I get it. But when we do that, we are really worsening our mental health. We're backtracking when we do stuff like that, especially as black men, and we need to be more
Yeah.
comfortable with sharing, sharing things and sharing certain mental health things that we're dealing with and growing with, because part of healing from that is expressing it, is sharing it. I think
Oh
about
yeah.
James 5:16 when James says, confess to one another and pray for one another so that you may be healed, because prayers of a righteous person is effective. So there's power in saying, like, and confessing what we're dealing with. Like, there's power in letting people know what we're actually currently, like, not what God already brought you through, but what you're dealing with, right now. And
Yeah.
especially with men, you know what I'm saying? Like, with men, and I'm glad you're on here with me. So, and we're having this conversation because it's important. Like, us men, we need to, you know, and I get it. Some men might view us, like, regardless of the day, you're not gonna please everybody. You know what I'm saying? Not everyone's always gonna understand. And that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool, agree to disagree. That's life. But there's gonna be other men that get the courage just by us sharing and having this conversation right now. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That
Yeah.
has the courage to open up about the things that they deal with, and that's where healing starts. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? 'Cause a lot of times we miss our chances to start healing by continuing to hold stuff in.
Yeah.
Um, like, do you think that's one thing that's plagued us when it comes to mental health, is the fact that we're scared to share, or like or that we hold things in, like, too much? 'Cause I know I've had this problem plenty of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely think it contributes. I definitely do. I think with just like the initial belief is that, like, hey, if you hold your feelings in and you learn to suppress them, that's unhealthy. Absolutely. But there are other components as well.
Hmm.
And I think that whether it is what you've seen growing up or how you know cope with certain things, they all kind of contribute. And I think that too often we try to try to spot the root of this, and like we find it's many different many different components. It's layered. um which is why I appreciate, and I advocate for mental health services for those that need it, because when someone is engaging in therapy, with one of the first steps is the therapist conducts what you call like a biopsychosocial, and it's an assessment that really looks at biologically, like where you know where you're from, and it kind of considers all of the things like about your physical. And then it talks about more so the psychological stuff, and how do you feel about this, and were you diagnosed ever with any growing up, any learning disabilities, that type of thing. And then it also talks about the social, and then there's also like a spiritual component. And so it kind of gets like this picture of you that like that, like in your whole support system, nobody else has all of that information. Like like your family might know like your biology, and they might know bits and pieces, but they
Hmm.
don't get like the full you,
Right.
because like you're split off into different areas. Like your family might not necessarily know who you socialize with,
Hmm.
or they may not necessarily know like what you're thinking about. And so like in mental health services, like you're getting this view of yourself that is really just like incomparable when it comes down to like other components. So like if you were to go ahead and say, all right, well, Jesus is just going to go ahead and heal a mental illness, and that is an initiative led by your pastor. Like they really aren't taking everything into consideration.
Right.
They don't know you unless you've sat down and asked and just given your pastor all of this information, which I doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, and it even like involves like, drugs that you've taken or struggles with alcoholism or, drug dependency, like those types of things that perhaps maybe you would be ashamed to share in
Right.
the church, even if it was like something in the past, and even if it's something that you kind of struggle with right now. Like, it's that area where you're able to be free. I think for me, like, I have a therapist, but sometimes, going, to therapy and, being that I grew up in the church, sometimes it's difficult to like share certain things because it's like you feel as if like you're
Mm-hmm.
not being like you it almost feels like you're telling on yourself,
Right.
but the
Right.
information's not really being
Right.
gathered in that sense. It's really being gathered in a, we want you're in control of your life.
Right.
But when it comes down to sharing certain things, like in a church setting, you're used to getting reprimanded or scolded, or uh, brought before everybody at the altar, in
Yeah.
more Pentecostal settings, and they pray it out of you, and that those types of things, so like in a way, like as you're saying, it is harmful because it can actually really deter somebody to be honest with their mental health provider or their clinician because of the fact that they feel like, oh, I can't really share that. What if people find out about that? And it's like this this
Exactly.
this has nothing to really even do with that.
Exactly. I mean, and honestly, let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. Not everyone should know the secret stuff about you.
True.
People people can't handle it. Like people really can't handle it, and not everybody truly, unfortunately, has your best interest at heart. They don't, and unfortunately, that's one of the many problems of the church. You feel me? Is a lot of the time they'll just use what you might say as a weapon later,
Yeah.
or have a pre-notion in their mind about you, like and they'll look at on your face like, oh, okay, I'm praying, but then in your mind they're still they have already a viewpoint of you. You know what I'm saying? And I get it,
Yeah.
and we're human because a lot of people do it. It's not just people in the church, which is the one thing that gets on my nerves about the church, right? Is because there's people in the church. The people in the church make mistakes just like the people outside the church. You know what I'm saying? And I get it as the flock of Christ, right? We're supposed to handle things differently as the world does, but that's why
Yeah.
we still need to be there because we don't. A
Yeah.
lot of the time we don't. That's why we need to be at church, in the get from the get go. So I honestly think therapy is a great thing because the fact that you can't trust everybody. Like at the end of the day, you can
Yes.
share some things with people, but at the end of the day, the things that you're currently going through, depending on what it is, unfortunately, we can't share that with everybody in the church because not everybody knows how to handle it. Uh, people look at you differently too much, things of that nature, and people will hold that view of you like for a good amount of time, even if you're already over it. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be done it. Like it could be something that you've done with in your past, and you're fully not doing it anymore. People will still hold you to it. Unfortunately, like that's the world. That's the world we really live in. So therapy is a good thing because by the law, it is by the
Oh
law.
yeah.
Yeah, by the law, they can't share nothing. You know what I'm saying? They can't share anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why I love that you go to Jesus and a therapist because at the end of the day, Jesus ain't gonna share nothing with nobody. You feel me? And your therapist ain't gonna share nothing with nobody. Those are the
That's
two.
I haven't heard it put that way, but yeah,
You know what
absolutely.
I'm saying? Like, look, Jesus ain't telling nobody nothing. He's always available. And then you got your therapist who by law ain't gonna share nothing or tell nobody either. Those are the two. Those are the two most
Yeah.
people that you can trust with with anything. You know what I'm
True.
saying? You can trust them with anything because at the end of the day, with us regular folks or your best friend or sometimes even your spouse, unfortunately, whatever you say, you have no control over.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
What,
Exactly.
what might come out? You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
true.
that should be a good reason why you can trust them anyway. And I get that it's not the easiest to find a good therapist that you connect with. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
that
yeah.
there's a hard
Yeah.
part. It could be trial and error when it comes to um finding a therapist that clicks with you, that can
Yeah.
relate with you. But don't let that deteriorate you from not finding a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, we have bad experiences in a lot of different places. We still keep going and still keep trying. You know,
Yeah,
I can name a lot of different things. There's times where they'll go to the usual restaurants and they're like, you know what, the food isn't good this time. You don't stop going. You know what I'm
true.
saying? You still continue to go, or you just go to
Yeah,
another location. Oh, this McDonald's suck. Okay, I'm gonna go to one that's down the street. Their
yeah,
service is better. Or the gas station people it's too high. Okay, I'm gonna go to another gas station. Their gas prices are lower. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we can't use that, as an excuse, to not try to find a therapist. Or even church. Like stop going to church in particular because you had a bad experiences with people over here. Well, okay, that doesn't stop you anywhere else. Don't let that stop you from the church as well. But that's a good thing that therapy brings. It brings another person that you can connect with and talk to that won't share anything that you're dealing with. You know what I mean? Your therapist is not looking at you with judgment. You know what I'm saying? Your therapist
yeah,
is looking at you like, oh, I'm about to tell my Facebook friends about this, or I'm about to gossip to the drummer
yeah,
about this. You know what I mean? Like the therapist can bring that extra level to it. And
yeah.
some things I wish the church would go back to is like when you look at how the early church started, in the first century, where there wasn't big buildings and light shows and big music groups and a pastor that has like hundreds of thousands of people talk, saying people just looking at that. Where the early church, what they did, they actually did community, they actually did life. Like we read it in Acts how they were treating one another, like how they
Oh
were
yeah,
actually spending money to help each other out. You know what I'm saying? Like they actually did community and did life together. You know what I mean? Like that's how
yeah.
the and granted, obviously they still had their problems. Like, trust me, if you read Corinthians, it'll tell you all about problems that people in the church were
Oh
having,
yeah,
or
yeah,
even Galatians. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like they were perfect, but the church was designed for community. The
yeah,
church was designed to do life together because obviously following Jesus isn't easy. You know what I'm saying? And in a world where obviously they don't care about God or things of that nature, and not to mention outside of that, you're gonna go through stuff in your life. Period. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I feel like as a church, we need to focus more on community, right? And if we do that, I think that can even help us more approach mental health differently in a more positive way, where we're able to, to do both. Oh shoot.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I think that sometimes, I mean, you brought up a lot of great points. And they're definitely all intertwined. But oftentimes we get really stumped when we're forced to really think about mental health, and that's
Yeah,
after someone, And
yeah.
I think for me, um, I was it maybe 2010. Jaquisha and I, well, for those who don't know, my wife and I, we had a friend in undergrad who over the Easter holiday at University of Maryland, she had committed suicide in her dorm room. She never returned home, and it was, we had just seen her maybe like a few days. I think maybe that Tuesday or Wednesday before I think the school let out for its break. And when we came back onto the campus, they were like, "Oh, the news. I mean, emails. Our student emails had went out and said that, oh, this student had passed away." And so it really hit me really hard, and I really wasn't close to her in any way. But it was the first time being that young. I must have been 19 or 20, somewhere around that. Even though that's not like 11 or 12,
Mhm.
it felt like this could have been me,
Right, right.
dead. And so I was like, well, Jaquisha, we should go and support the funeral and stuff like. And we went and everything. And I remember going to the church, and it was a smaller church, very I think it was a Presbyterian church,
Mhm.
and very straightforward, all acoustics, and the pastor got up there, and it was like they were looking for something to like believe in, and they were looking for something, and nobody could really make sense of it. Like, why would this happen? And nobody really wanted to like think anything negative. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what was appropriate to say. And even I think the pastor handled it really, really well. But like during those times, you're tempted to say, God is to focus on more so of the spiritual thing, when it's just like there are other things that are really pressing too.
Right.
And the reality is that this person was really suffering internally,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult to like address that when you have no idea and you're the family that has to go and pick up their daughter, or son from school, and you know go to the coroner's office and worry about things that you didn't even think about. And so there are times, man, when it's like you're forced to think about mental health, and whether it's
Yeah.
something as extreme as that, or if it's your body is shutting down because you're burnt out.
Yeah.
It doesn't always result in death, which is a good thing. But like your body does tell you when it's time for you to like calm down. And as you're saying, like, you're able to kind of get these things out, and nobody's going to judge you for it. Your therapist is not going to go and gossip about you.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus ain't going to go out and gossip about you. It's true, man, because like we've actually been going to therapy for a long time now. We actually really have. We've just been talking to our friends,
Mm-hmm.
and then our friends don't do us right all the time, and they
Mm-hmm.
do gossip. Like, they
Oh yeah.
gossip.
Oh yeah.
Next thing you know, other people know your business,
Uh-huh.
and next thing you know, like you're having fights with your friends, and it's just causing your mental health to decline even more. And
Yeah.
so, we if we really think about it in that context, like we have been talking, and we have been letting some things out, but sometimes we just let it out with anybody who's willing to listen. Sometimes we let it out to people that we really don't like, but because they're there, we use them.
Right.
Sometimes we feel like if we give of ourselves, maybe it'll enhance a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, man, like you tell somebody some stuff, and they turn it around and use it against you, and it's like, yeah, friendship is gone, and just all of that. These people know your business now,
Mm-hmm.
and the friendship is gone. you know um like you said, by law, therapists can't share anything. They're not, you
Nope.
know and we all could use it. Like we all go through, even therapists have therapists.
Sure do.
I got a therapist, like you. And even in like the mental health field, when you're working with clients, like you have to have what we call it supervision. And it's usually like a clinical uh a clinical therapist
Oh crap! My light.
who.
Oh, okay, be good.
Are you good?
Oh, I unplugged it on accident.
It's all good.
Ah, I'll be good. Anyways,
But
yes.
yes, you'll get a clinical therapist to kind of just process things with you,
Mhm.
just to kind of even practice, like, look at your secondhand trauma. Like, basically you can get trauma just from listening to people.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
actually on the other end of it, it's dangerous to really hear other people's like trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an actual thing that like you can actually experience trauma yourself just by hearing their trauma. So we really shouldn't be out here offering mental health services and we're not like trained, and we want to hear, like, if it's beyond
Ding ding
you
ding
know
ding. Ding.
a certain scope,
If I had a
we get.
budget, if I had a budget right now, say that again. Please say it. Say it. Please say that again. That last part out. Do not offer yourself if you're
Yeah,
not a professional. That yes. Please say that one.
yeah.
Please.
No,
Say that.
yep, that's exactly right. You should not be offering yourself for mental health services if you're not trained, because it's more than just like oh, I need to get paid. This actually weighs on my mental just to
Mm-hmm.
hear you talk.
Yep.
And people go to school for this, and and they get licensed for this, and and they have to see a therapist themselves and get clinical supervision to process what's being said.
Yeah.
So like if you have stuff that you need to process, like, don't give that to. I'm not trying to say you can't have a support system. It's great that you do, but like when it is when there are things that you've really, really like that you need help working through, It's a process. You might have conflicting, feelings on it. Like it's worth bringing it up to, a professional. I know that you and I have, been, had friends where, have you ever had a friend that was like dating somebody and they
Yeah,
told you a story about them, and then
yeah,
you're just like, oh, that sounds really, really off. Never see
yeah,
them again. They disrespected you, and then they invite that person back into their life,
yes,
and then you're stuck in the situation where it's like, now you can't see this person any other way because your friend already told you what they did, and it's usually something that's very disrespectful. So in the
yes, it
back
is.
of your mind, you're like, this isn't right. And so it's like it puts you in an unfair position. Your therapist, however, is trained to actually process that with you. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's talk about
Mm,
why. They're actually able to look more objectively. But, like, we can't really look that objectively with people that we
care about.
like, yeah, and that we know and care about. And also, there are like uh, um, policies and I think ethics that like really prevent you from providing therapy to anybody that you know. So like a lot
Yeah,
of the stuff we're doing,
shouldn't be doing.
we really probably should not be like conversations we should not be having.
We should be doing it at all. Like,
No.
and I and and uh and it's kind of weird too, because like when you think about the word, right, and you think about how you handle disputes,
Yeah.
right,
You
the
bring in
first thing
another
you're supposed
person.
to do
Yeah.
is first you're supposed to talk to them specifically,
Yeah.
right? Then if that doesn't work, you bring somebody else in. Then that doesn't work, you know what I'm saying? You bring somebody else in, and those are some good points, is because especially like even as a pastor, and you know this too, dealing with like I really didn't know like how much it actually weighs on you to hear people's all the time,
Oh
like you
yeah.
hear people's
Yeah.
problems and issues, and at first it's like you don't think it's a big deal, but it is because there's a lot of weight and like people are putting their weight on you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Like
yeah.
people are coming to you. It might not be physical weight that you can feel fit, like you can
Yeah.
see physically, but it really does weigh you down. Even for myself, I had to learn um you have to set boundaries. You know what I mean? You have to set
Yeah.
boundaries for people and what they put on you because unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, but unintentionally, they're doing it not knowing how it's really affecting you. And
Yeah.
a lot of the times we're making ourselves available, thinking it's helping the other person, when really it is kind of helping the other person, but it's really messing you up too. And sometimes even more than what the person is venting is even getting help
Yeah.
for. So I think you brought up a huge good point, is the fact that we don't, yes, be an open ear where someone can talk to sometimes. Like, don't be acting like just because someone says you give good advice and all this and that, you ain't a therapist, you know what I'm saying? You can give good advice, sure, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we're not trained to handle everybody's stuff, because you know what I'm saying? Because it's not like we just go to one, like we want one person, like we think we could be available for everybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when you're still in like grade school and still in church and things of that nature, you want to be there for everybody, which is a good thing, right? It's a good thing to have good intentions that way, but at the end of the day, you can hurt yourself in the process if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a huge point, because I've been there plenty of times where even before like I became a pastor and stuff like that, where because of me being public with my faith in different ministries that I had, people were coming to me, and it took me a while to learn how to balance it, like to understand it and learn how to balance it and learn like, look,
Yeah.
I don't know everything. I don't. I do
Yeah.
not, and I don't want to know everything. You know what I'm saying? There's only one person, that God is the only person that knows everything, knows how to do everything. And I had to learn to give myself boundaries and learn how to refer people, and also tell people like, look, I think you need to go to therapy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think therapy is something that you need to go to, and I think it will be very beneficial for you. So that's like that was such a good point, Kurt, about like us, you know, because at the end of the day, and especially the thing you brought up, when someone you care about is venting to you, you know what I'm saying? And it's somebody and sometimes it might be somebody you know well, or
Yeah.
somebody you kind of know, or someone you might not know, but they'll vent about how bad this person is, what they did, and then you have to go back and see this person. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm dapping this person up, hanging up at their house, but I'm still thinking about what what you
Yeah.
told me,
Exactly. Yeah.
the other day. So it's awkward, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times for the people we care about, you know what I'm saying? Really, if you care about the person, you'll be honest with them. you know what I'm saying, about certain stuff. But sometimes it can go away. You know what I'm saying? I try to be objective, actually. I really do try to be objective more when it
Oh,
comes to my friends.
I'm
Because,
sure you do. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Because,
Yeah.
you know, everyone could be more better at it, but, you know, therapists are more trained for that because they know the right techniques and things to do, you know what I'm saying? But as a good friend, if you can point out something that they're doing that is wrong, you definitely need to point that out. You know what I'm saying? You definitely need
Yeah.
to share that more or be more objective because at the end of the day, you have to analyze things from different angles. You know what I'm saying? As I got older, I had to realize that more. Not even for my own issues in my life. Like, okay, let me think about how the other person's thinking and feeling and things of that nature. So, but shoot, before we wrap up, because I didn't even know we was on here just went for an hour. Okay,
Yeah. It's been a
this
while.
been flowing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I like to do because there's a lot of good content that you know, and you shared a lot of great points. So just thank you once again for just being on here.
Yeah, man.
Just
Absolutely.
thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having me.
sharing great points and things that people haven't heard or even thought about, and think, and hopefully this will uh really help at least if it doesn't even help one person out, I'll be happy. You know what I'm saying? That's always my philosophy. Like whatever I do, whatever video, whatever the case, whatever God is leading me to help somebody, if it at least helps it strikes one mind, then that's enough for that one person to go off and help even, you know, even more people. So do you have any other like last thoughts or feelings to like for anyone that's still I guess on the fence with uh like the church and mental health, if someone's still on the fence about whether both's okay, is there any other last like thoughts or feelings you have towards that?
Anybody that's on the fence about getting mental health services, and if they feel as if they would be, um, I guess, like disloyal to God, by doing it, I would really just challenge them, like like, what, how do they feel like they would be disloyal, or what would in what way that do they believe that God would want them to not go? And, and I think that the root of that would really kind of establish what it is. I've talked to older saints, and it's more so of like, Jesus is my therapist, and they're the ones that are really, really struggling. But I also know they're the ones with a lot of trauma. Not saying old people have trauma, but the ones that I was speaking to
Oh,
more
they do.
so.
No, a
You
lot
know,
of them do. No, a lot
you
of them
know.
definitely
Oh
can keep
yeah, a
them.
lot of
A
them
lot of them do.
do.
No, they do. Yes, they
But
do. They sure
yeah.
do.
So, but I mean, but it's more so of like they're scared, and I feel like
Yes.
that is worth exploring. Like a lot of it is just nervous. Like they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know how they're going to feel. And it's about also, they don't know how it's going to be with them being vulnerable.
Right.
And then also, you kind of hinted at it earlier. I wish I kind of hit it on it a little bit earlier too. It is a process, it is a bit of a process to get a good therapist, but to not, you know don't quit if one or two therapists are not like your
Hmm.
style or your fit. There are plenty of therapists out there, but it can be a challenge to like find, because it's like finding a partner in many ways. Like you
Yeah.
need to feel comfortable, you need to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like, don't feel bad if it's like, hey, this isn't working out. I've tried 2-3 people now. Do it until you feel like you've met somebody that like you feel gives good advice and that you can trust.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Kurt. Yes, people. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't be
So
discouraged. Okay. You're not being disloyal, as Kurt said, you're not being disloyal to God because you're going to see a therapist. Yes, Jesus can help us with our anxiety and all these different things, and He wants us to come to us first. He didn't say just only, He says first. Okay, like I said, this is not nothing about salvation. We ain't talking about how you're being saved. We're just talking
right.
about you getting helped mentally. Okay, so when it comes to that, yes, Christ wants you to go to Him first, but not only. There's other. He's okay with you going to other people, other trained people for help, okay? It's fine. Yes, Jesus can heal. Sure, he can heal. We know that. We get that. We know his power and things of that nature. But sometimes he doesn't want to just heal us like that. He wants us to go through the process. He wants us to go through these things, okay? And a
Yeah.
lot of times there's hidden blessings in the midst of the process and the things we get because a lot of the time if he just healed, like if he just takes away everything that we have in our life, what are we really learning from that? What are we really gaining from that? What are we really getting out of life from that? If he always takes away every problem and everything that we have, and not to mention life doesn't work that way anyway. Okay,
No,
so
it doesn't. No.
it don't. But Kirk,
Yeah.
real quick before we dip to, let talk about your podcast and let people know how they can find you as well, because
Yeah.
puts out some good stuff. So please share your podcast, put that out there and see how people can find you.
Yeah. I am mostly active on Instagram. I haven't been real active on Facebook, but mostly on Instagram. So you can follow me at Kirk.Baltimore, and I am and at my podcast account at Black Freud _ISH. So I do a podcast called Black Freudish, and it's really dedicated to like Black mental health, Black culture. We talk about trauma, um, you know, and just really kind of just talk about mental health and how it impacts, how it has impacted our community, and just ways that we can just kind of just be aware of what's going on. And so this month we're also in a mental health awareness series as well, because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we post every Monday. So if you're interested, come and check it out.
Yes, please holler at my man Kirk's podcast, bro. He has a lot of good, dope stuff, content. He has different people that come on there. Come on now, it's me. So if I'm telling you to check somebody out, I feel like y'all should trust me and know this person's stuff is good. I ain't gonna sway you to somebody that don't know what they doing or talking about. As you just heard for the last hour, my man knows what he's talking about, okay? And he knows a lot about other different stuff as well, okay? So please check my man's podcast out. But that's it. We've been on here for over an hour, so I pray that this podcast does help you to look at this topic differently and ultimately learn that Jesus loves you and that you can still go to church, you can still worship Jesus and God and still have a therapist to help you with the problems that you have, and that God is not looking at you in heaven talking about you idiot. Why would you don't no, he's not doing that. So don't feel bad about it, and just take a chance. You never
Yeah.
know. It can help you. But we out. Peace.
See ya.